Hello malt mates, I'm Ralphie and welcome to my channel called The Whisky Bothy. This is The Whisky Bothy. It's kind of fairly basic, but it functions. And this is where I review whiskies, and I'm just about to start a new series on this channel for the next 4 weeks on independent bottlings. Now, just to put things into perspective as I pour this dram, independent bottlings are bottles of whisky like this which have not been bottled by the distillery themselves. What generally happens is the distillery, if they need the money in quick, they will actually sell a bundle of casks to a wholesaler, to a secondary warehouse that usually separate from their own business. And that warehouse will then store the casks, start to mature them further, and sell them on to third-party customers who are generally independent bottlers, or a small company that's looking to commission a bottling for some special event, whether it be a gentleman's club in London or Paris, or whether it be for a grand wedding somewhere where they want their own specific whisky. So the independent bottlers are people who bottle whisky that don't own the distillery, so they don't have the troubles and responsibilities of actually owning a distillery. But what they do is they can buy from all different distilleries, from all different directions, and not just Scotch whisky. They can buy other spirits as well. And then they can, having obtained the casks, they continue to look after the casks, mentor these casks, and then bottle them when they feel they're ready. And here is a very good example of a contemporary independent bottler who tends to be focusing, in my opinion, humble opinion, focusing in quality. This is James Eadie. And this in specific whisky that I'm going to review for you is 16-year-old Milton Duff single malt Scotch whisky from Speyside, bottled at 54.3%, and it says both on the front of the label of the bottle and on the back label of the bottle that it is, where does it say it? Hang about, where does it say it? Yeah, it says in the back of the label. I thought it said it in the front, but I've misread here. Basically, cask strength, natural colour, unchill filtered. So it says it where it needs to be said. I thought it said it on the front actually, but it's got a lot of other very useful information in the front label, which I'll come back to shortly. Now, if you're an experienced whisky drinker that's done your foundational tutorials, that's what we'll call it, it's drinking whisky. We tend to start with the official bottlings from distilleries like Caol Ila, for example, or Isle of Arran, or Tobermory, or Glenfarclas, there's a lot to choose from. There's well over 100 different official distillery brands out there. But it's once we get more experience, we start to get curious, particularly for the less engineered experience of Scotch whisky, for a simple reason: our palate's prepared for it. So if you're starting off in whisky, you don't start with independent bottlings like this, because it's just going to confuse your inexperienced palate. What you're going to do is you're going to start with what you find even in the supermarket. Isle of Jura, perfectly competent place to start. Glenfiddich 12-year-old, some Glenlivet. They will give you your basic consumer, passive consumer, single malt experience, and in that respect there's nothing wrong with them, although, as you know, on this channel I can be a bit snooty and snobby about them, but that's me being me, so let's carry on. There comes a point after about 5 years or more, and you probably start to think about buying your independent bottlings as soon as you've been to a whisky festival. And when you go to a whisky festival, and if you do have the opportunity, seize it with both hands, right? It's a tremendous situation for learning because you're tasting a tremendous variety of whiskies. And of course, you've had plenty of food before you've been. It's bland food, so no curries, no chilies, keep your palate clean, and you've got a big bottle of water to keep hydrated, and you're keeping it quality, not quantity. This is really quite important. And the whisky festivals let you taste and try before you buy. And I know, kind of having viewed whisky festivals for a few years, that independent bottlers' tables tend to be busy, because it's not just the fact that they have a variety of different single malts and permutations thereof on the table, but it's the way that they bottle them. It's the integrity of these bottlings. They know that their customer is not so much an passive consumer, but an active whisky fan. And this, by the way, is reflected in the fact that they don't advertise, they don't squander money in ineffective advertising, such as the big companies do, which leaves them a better budget for actually preparing what they're bottling and what they're selling. This is a really good example. It's also, by the way, the first time on my channel in 16 years that I've reviewed a Milton Duff single malt Scotch whisky. Milton Duff is part of the Pernod Ricard group, so you will find Milton Duff in Ballantine's, for example, a proprietary blended Scotch. And it works very well. I can see exactly why they use a lot of it in the blends, because this is often disparagingly referred to as blend filler Scotch whisky, because it lacks any assertive, bold characteristics such as you would find in Mortlach, for example, or Talisker, or any of the peated Scotch single malt whiskies like Laphroaig, certainly a good example. I mean, loads of character there. This is really the opposite of this. This is a bland single malt, but don't be fooled, because it's very tempting to forget about these whiskies, because whisky experts just shake their head knowingly and say, oh, Milton Duff, it's there with Strathmill and Tullybarden. They're just blend fillers. That is far too dismissive, and it really is unfair on this style of single malt. This is a soft malt. That's what it is. As soon as you put your nose to the glass, it's gentle, it's understated, it's completely unassuming, and nothing jumps out to slap you around the face as you would get with Laphroaig or Talisker. This is an understated, soft malt, fudge, barley sugar, light vanilla style of single malt. Classic Milton Duff. I've tasted it a few times from auction buys. And this is exactly what I'm getting, is what really appeals to me about it. An understated, quiet single malt. When we get more experienced around whisky, we start looking for these sort of experiences, because not every performance out of a bottle needs to be a high-end drama. Sometimes we're looking for a simple, soft little melody, and that's what we're going to be happy with. That's what we get here. On the nose, initially, very unassuming, almost apologetic. Light, but I'm immediately noticing clean, fresh, really good quality casks have been used here. And I'll come back to that shortly. First taste. Sharp. Distinctly sharp. Grain sour. A little two-dimensional. But there's something going on there. There's a real cereal, funky, umami, yeasty, almost linseed note that's coming from the carrot. It's basically coming straight from the grain. Now that's where this is starting to get interesting, because in first encounter, there's really not much to leave a particularly good impression. It's when we add water, all right, 5 millilitres, what I usually add, and then just rest it for a little bit. What you'll get is a spectacular transformation. Initially on the nose, the maltiness starts to improve, it starts to grow. It's quite impressive the way this whisky transforms once you've added a little water. This transformation, by the way, will continue over the next hour as you consume the whisky. It's really quite distinctive and it's quite impressive. And it's not about flavour, malt mates, it's about the form of this whisky. It's got a wonderful nature and a great form to it. But that's not the only thing, and I'll come to that shortly. Now it's becoming more aromatic. We're getting a little bit of more distinctive flavour notes coming out on the nose. Getting a little bit of soft banana. The fudge, the fudginess, the soft toffee notes are growing. The barley sugar is becoming a little more aromatic, and it's bringing out a tiny drop of gingeriness into the background on the nose. There's also a note of eau de cologne and floral, subdued, almost vegetal floral note. In fact, it's now behaving like an eau de vie spirit that you would get from France. So really the expression is of the original ingredient. Taste. That initial nip, which was kind of a bit of hostility in it, is disappearing fast. There is a lovely sweetness growing around this. This is a sweet malt. And I'm also noticing the natural understated complexity in this whisky is quite substantial, but it remains a gentle, soft, ambient style of single malt. I'm adding another 5 millilitres. If you think it's too much, I don't care. Master blenders add even more than that when they're assessing a whisky. However much whisky we choose to add to our, however much water we choose to add to our whiskies is entirely our own assessment. I never judge anybody else, and I never presume for anybody to judge. So if you've got people telling you that you can only drink your whisky with water or without water, hey, if you bought the bottle and if you paid for it, you call the shots. It's your experience. But just so as you know, you're really not going to get the full experience of this bottle until you add a drop of water. It just won't happen. You need to dilute it to chase out the flavonoid chemicals coming from the cask. And the cask, by the way, influence has been excellent. What a well chosen cask. But about that shortly. Now we're really starting to get the fullness of the transformation here. From the ugly little duckling to the beautiful swan. It remains and always will be a soft style of single malt. But don't underestimate for 1 minute how satisfying an experience it can be to consume that style of single malt. There's times that we just want a break from the big dramas of the big bold flavours, and this delivers it very elegantly in this distinctly excellent, crystal clear sherry style. This isn't a sherry monster. It never goes that far. Throughout the experience, the substance of the Milton Duff holds the whole theatrical event together. It holds the show and This quietly just continues to grow and evolve. The savoury notes, wonderful, complex, soft savouriness that starts to balance out the sweetness, and you don't really start to spot it until you're at least 20 to 25 minutes in. I'm going to have to wind things up now. The sweet and sour savoury balance is bold and very well coordinated. The sensation range is really amplifying the delivery of the flavours. So you've got soft flavours there, slightly syrupy notes, vanilla, raisiny notes from the sherry, there's a little light gingeriness, a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of soft banana, apricot and grilled pineapple in the background. But essentially, it's this sensation of sweet, sour and bitter and savoury, backed up by savoury. The complexity of that sensation range is delivering just a delightful whisky. How have they done it? They give us information in the front label. I'll read it out to you. It's worth knowing. Here it goes. Hang about. Steampunk is a bit wet, a bit misty. It's a misty day. Bottle number 171, and this is bottle number 41 of 171. Cask number 369684. Distilled in the 19th of July 2007 and bottled in 2024. Finished in a refill Oloroso Hogshead Oak European cask and finished for 17 months. Please take note, malt mates, this is important. This is not a short finish. They're telling you what they've used, a refill, which has previously held another spirit, probably whisky, just to temper down and restrain the sherry notes so that it isn't just basically turning into a sherry bomb, which would easily happen if it was a first fill ex-sherry cask. This is a refill. The interaction is much more nuanced, subtle and delicate, and it's happening to a soft and delicate single malt. This is bringing in a lot of what you call ambient complexity, sort of notes that you can't quite, they don't jump out to meet you. They're just subtle and understated, and it creates just a lovely, delightful, beautifully structured and you don't get better deliveries of whisky than this. You just don't. Full cask strength, 54.3%. A great age, 16 years old. So you're really getting the restrained cask interaction is just continuing to develop and hold on to that signature that you get from a soft Speyside single malt distillery like Milton Duff. And it delivers it beautifully. It's understated. For an inexperienced whisky drinker, frankly, they're not going to get it. The experience is going to go over their head. You need quite a few years under your belt before you can actually engage properly and get a lot out of this. But when we start to look at these bottles, once we've got experience, there's treasure to be found, and this is a very good example of it. And the integrity of the delivery is important here. They're telling us 17 months in a refill ex-sherry cask. Not 3 months, not 3 weeks, 3 months, not 6 months, which would be competent. It's 17 months, that's basically a year and a half. We know that that's sufficient engagement, that the influence of the cask is going to bed in and integrate fully with the malt itself, and that's what happens. This is such a gentle giant, and you can tell just when you're tasting this, you can tell that Milton Duff is blend filler, but it's not just there to fill the blends. It's there to connect the grain whisky with the bolder, more expressive single malts. It's that single malt in between that you'll never notice in the blend, but it's part of the composition. It's essential because it's a binding malt. It fills in all the gaps. It rounds off in the blending process the bold, strong, assertive single malts, particularly the peated ones, and the lighter and occasionally, often, anemic grain whiskies. Mission accomplished. James Eadie as an independent bottler. I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about what you need to know, your basic whisky forensics. In my next review, number 1064, I think it is, I'm sure it is, extras, and I look forward to seeing you there. But before I go, let's give this a malt mark. It's a good one. What I've enjoyed about this whisky is that it isn't a standard single malt experience. It's coming from a different direction. This whisky is singing a different song than many of the big, bold, assertive soloist malts that we tend to gravitate towards, like Springbank and Glenfarclas. And because of that, I'm really enjoying the experience. 85 out of 100. That is a good solid malt mark. And this is a really lovely single malt. Get these little eau de cologne notes. Slight minty, soft buttermint. That's what it is. Buttermint creeping in now that wasn't there before. It's also the savouriness of the malt, the grain savoury. I really enjoy that. It reminds me of Mortlach. And I think that's all I have to say now, folks. I think this review's gone on quite enough. Whew. We'll see you soon.